Freeze explosion has ended. Gargia, a hermit who is covered in scars and trapped in a huge ice mass. Soon after, when the freezing was lifted, the ice mass disappeared into powder, scattering blue light. Gargia's body turned into gray powder and flew away in vain. Did you do it? It was ruined. As soon as Kaya cast the enemy's resurrection spell, the result was immediately confirmed and neutralized. Congratulations. Gargia of the Hermit Law of 110 was defeated and EXP was obtained. Level up. Oli has risen to 40. Acquire stat A. The destroyer trait was dispelled, and my body suddenly became heavy. It was a feeling I had never gotten used to. Took! At that moment, one of the daggers Gargia was holding fell to the floor. A dagger with a black scabbard. I immediately picked up the dagger. You have acquired the loot, Sword of Disaster? Sword of Disaster. If you engrave a magic circle that can be used and inject the required amount of magic to cast the magic, you can use that magic at the place where the scabbard is. Limits. 5-star magic. Cooldown time. 10 minutes. Rank. Tier 1. Sword of Disaster. This is a very useful item. This alone greatly increases the width of your tactics when using the magic engraved on the scabbard. No magic is consumed. This is because it is used for injecting magic power in advance and using it when necessary. For camouflage with a sticking blade. It's just an ordinary dagger. Isaac, what is that? A weapon possessed by demons. I will take it back. This is mine now. I suppressed the urge to hum and put the Scabbard of Disaster into the magic pouch. Now, in case you have any questions, you can refer to uwimtle.com for references. I dedicate this to Silky Goat. Now that you have defeated Gargia of the Hermit, you must also destroy all of her minions, the Disaster Ants. However, it seemed that they could not be freed because I had frozen them. I reached out and lifted the ice that covered the entire cave. The ice that had frozen the cave turned into blue powder and scattered like fireflies. To let you know that I've been through a lot. Then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Massive freeze-off. It was a brief moment like a fireworks display. It was also a beautiful moment. Seeing Kaya exclaiming, she seemed to feel the same way as me. Soon, the Disaster Ants that stood in an orderly fashion turned to gray powder and disappeared all at once. At that moment, a system window popped out in front of me. Congratulations. Disaster Ants of 70 have been defeated and experience points have been acquired. Me, level up. Elf has risen to 50. Man. Acquire stat 20.
Man.
Achievement Genocide has been achieved. You get an additional 10 bonus stats.
Meh.
Whoa. No. Whoa. Wait. Even if all of the Disaster Ants are destroyed by killing Gargia in Act 2, Chapter 4 of Magical Night of Marchen, no experience points are received. The only thing that gives you experience is the Disaster Ants that you defeat yourself. Even the Disaster Ants do not come all at once and press the player with all kinds of strategic tactics, so there is no need to deal with the entire entity. However, I froze the entire cave and touched the pre-Disaster Ants. As a result, it seemed to have been judged to have dealt with all of the Disaster Ants. Thanks to this, the EXP party was held, and the Genocide achievement was achieved. Oh. The moment I was about to scream at the rush of achievement, seeing Kaya's eyes, she coughed and quickly cleared her mind. In case you have any questions, you can refer to uwemtle.com for references. I dedicate this to Silky Goat. No. I am happy after breaking up with Kaya. Until then, let's hold on to this joy for a while. Isak.
Kaya.
I have a request for you. What? Kaya's jade-colored eyes twinkled. It was like a child looking at me with curious eyes. Kaya Astrine. LV. 93. Race. Human. Attributes. Wind. Ice. Risk. Psychology. I am delighted to hear from you. Tia. It's nice to be happy, but then you become a slave. By the way, he also received cooperative experience and leveled up. He was in his 90s and had just risen 1 level. But if you look at his rise again, he must have acquired a significant amount of experience. Perhaps it was judged that Kaya's performance this time was great. Well, I admit it. Without him, I might have had to go back in vain. I'm glad things went well. In case you have any questions, you can refer to uwemtl.com for references. I dedicate this to Silky Goat. Now there is only one thing left. I'm going to take it back from now on, I said, pointing to Jeffrim, the pale yellow mana stone lying on the ground. Help me with that. Honestly, you got stronger thanks to me. Didn't you? You can ask for something like this. Can't you? Alright. Kaya willing to accept handing over an empty magic pouch? She went to the corner opposite me and started picking up Jeffrim. Before long, Kaya used all-powerful wind magic to bring the Jeffrims from every nook and cranny to one place. Thanks to this, I was able to conveniently sweep Jeffries out. But what are all these magic stone? While holding Jeffrim in his magic pouch, Kaya asked. I didn't feel the need to lie, so I decided to answer honestly. A material used for forging weapons? Are you thinking of making a weapon? No, I will sell it. You pick it up to earn gel. Kaya nodded her head as if she understood. You must have run out of gel by pretending to be weak. If you had told me, I would have always helped. That's an extreme specification. Kaya is a first-year junior in the School of Magic and the daughter of the Duke of Astrian. For example, try to show students that an E-class commoner like me is having a meal with her. I can't even guess what kind of complicated rumors will circulate. I do not need, I answered firmly. The way back, after me and Kaya had exited the underground maze, they were climbing a dimly lit uphill. relying on the light of a luminous lamp. The medin bag was quite heavy on the shoulder. This is because there are 2 magic pouches filled with Jeffrim. And to the Sword of Disaster? Isn't it too strong? Isaac, while walking quietly. Kaya broke the silence at first. What was that black ice earlier? I knew it. When did you ask? Black ice is a magic created by combining ice and dark attributes. No one could say that it was the magic of the demons, simply because it was a magic that gave off black light. But it was possible to have doubts because of this situation. If he had avoided this question, there was a high possibility that Kaya would have an absurd imagination. So, are you going to make it up and say it? You don't have to. I decided to answer honestly. Is it a color change? Or something like that with a magic tool? The magic of demons. Kaya's eyes widened. Whoa! Kaya immediately wraps her feet in wind magic and retreats to the other side of me. He shows a vigilant posture with a nervous face. Kaya Astrain. Psychology. I am doubting whether you are a demon or not. Look, it's like this. I stopped my feet and continued speaking calmly. I defeated a certain demon in the past and got an item. The Remnant of Darkness. A tier 1 item that combines dark mana and my existing elemental mana to learn new magic. Thanks to that, I was able to use black ice. Item tier means rarity. The lower the number, the rare and higher the value. Among them, tier 1 is by far the highest. By the way, did you answer like an explanatory person? Seems like a scammer somehow. 3 seconds. As if time had stopped. 3 seconds passed by too quietly. Kaya lowered her eyes and nodded her head. She seemed to have come to her own conclusions. Kaya Astrain. Psychology. I believe in you. Ma'am. I have defeated the demons and have shown Kaya what it is. That fact alone proves that I am not on the side of the demons. Perhaps Kaya is thinking the same thing. Sorry for doubting. Kaya cleared her vigilance and came back to my side. 20 minutes later, we exited the Tantak underground cave, the starry night sky, the canyon, the nearby forest, and the scenery of the dirt road greeted us. Is it because the heart is rich? This scenery looks very beautiful. Finally out. You worked hard. Isaac. Okay, but how are you going to get back to the dormitory? Oh, right. How is he going to go back? Are you going to camp? Anna. In case you have any questions, you can refer to umtl.com for references. I dedicate this to Silky Goat. No, maybe it is an hour's walk from here to the carriage stop. It was late anyway, so the carriage ride would have ended. There are no lodgings around here. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huihui. Moreover, there is a limit to how Kaya can fly with wind magic wrapped around her body. It is the act of condensing the wind that can blow a person's body and sending it out stably and continuously. If it is not used for a short time, the consumption of mana is bound to be enormous at Kaya's level, no matter how much magic power you have. As a rule of thumb, if you fly for about 3 minutes, you'll be in a state of depletion of mana. Did you come here without any precautions? Kaya bowed her head without saying a word. Her face went red. I'm Kaya Astrain. Psychology. I am embarrassed by my chaotic appearance. Mate. This can be happen. Because I didn't know I was chasing. You wouldn't have dreamed that I was going to camp. Now follow. I will cook you. Yes. Kaya's expression showed strong skepticism. A question mark appeared above his head. Between the canyons, the bright crescent moon reflected my image on the rippling stream, and I was in narcissism. The wind was blocked, so it was quiet and the floor was flat. In a word, it was the perfect spot for camping. I took all my camping gear out of my magic bag. First of all, the simple tent was installed lightly as soon as it was unfolded, and it even looked comfortable by putting a blanket on it and putting a luminescent lamp in it. Then, I pulled out 2 simple chairs. It was a good thing I brought extras with me just in case. Kaya just stood still. It seemed strange that I was going to camp in earnest. You came here with a purpose. This one is for that lil chicken owl. Of course. You'll catch a cold if you just sleep. This one is for that lil chicken owl. Of course. There was also a tendency to overspend. I thought that selling Jeffrim would make a lot of money anyway. As a result, it became the best choice. Kaya, can I bring you some firewood? Oh, you want to make a bonfire? I nodded. I'll be there soon. Kaya wrapped wind magic around her body and flew over the canyon into the woods. With her wind magic, it would be easy to create firewood. Well, it helped me to become strong quickly, and I agreed to provide Isaac's camping. So I can ask for this. I sat in a small chair and put a luminous lamp in front of me that gave off a soft light. Let's see. Bye. He took the scabbard of disaster out of his magic pouch and began to look around. The black scabbard was full of fine scratches. When stroked, there was a rough texture between the smooth textures. It looks old and plain. Therefore, it is a good item to distract the opponent. Shh. He pulled out a dagger from its scabbard to let you know that I've been through a lot. Then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huihui. Moderately sharp dagger. This is a really ordinary weapon. However, since the dagger itself has its own function, it may be useful in many ways. I put down the cutlery and turned my gaze back to the scabbard of disaster. The freeze explosion magic circle will be engraved on this scabbard. Then, where there is a sword of disaster, I can use freeze explosion without consuming mana. It's not like I'm draining mana. There is no need to even pretend to use magic. Doesn't it seem very appropriate to hit the back of your opponent's head? However, the cooldown is 10 minutes, and each time you use it, you have to store the amount of magic in the scabbard equal to the amount of magic used in freeze explosion. In fact, most of the cases are one-time use per battle, but that single use will give me victory. This one is for that little chicken owl. Of course, engraving a magic circle and injecting some magical energy is not going to happen, because there is a condition that I must be able to use magic. I reached level 50 today, so I will be able to learn Freeze Explosion soon. I want to learn it at least until the face-to-face performance evaluation. Isaac, I'm here. Kaya has already arrived. Next to her were firewoods spinning in a small tornado. You're really fast. If you're a soldier, you'll do well. In the first place, life in the Astriane family mansion would have been nothing short of an army. Well done. Kaya Astriane. Psychology. I am glad to hear your praise. Bye. Looks like a puppy. I'm embarrassed. Have I ever had such an influence on anyone? I couldn't think of anything else that came to mind other than what I wore when I was in elementary school. Anyway, now we have to make a fire. I took a fire magic spell engraved with a magic circle from my magic bag and laid it out on the floor. The spellbook was fixed with a rolling stone. He stimulated the spellbook by infusing it with a speck of magical power. Then the spell was activated, and a gentle flame rose gently. Fire generation fire attribute 1. Elemental attribute spells can only be obtained up to a maximum of 2 stars. This is because there is a limit to the amount of magical power that can be contained in the spellbook. The 1-star fire magic spellbook I got is useful in real life. Kaya dispelled the wind magic and placed the firewood on top of the fire magic spell. Soon the fire began to burn the wood, and it began to burn. The bonfire is complete. Oh! Bah. Are you feeling okay? Sit down. Kaya just stood there sullenly. So I said, pointing to the small chair next to me. Yes, 4. Kaya answered like a nervous private, then sat down on a stool. The warmth of the bonfire was warm, but the weather itself was still rather chilly. I took out a blanket, covered it, and handed an extra blanket to Kaya. She said thank you and put a blanket over her shoulder like me. Afterwards, I heated the water with a bonfire and handed her hot tea. A smirk leaked from the corner of her lips, wondering if it was surprising that things kept pouring out of me. It's warm. Kaya's expression softened as if her body was melting. The sound of a bonfire burning is widespread. We drank tea and watched the bonfire quietly. It wasn't that uncomfortable. It's been a long time since I've had this kind of free time. It was the first cozy feeling after being possessed by Magic Knight of Marchen. It's been a month and a half since I was possessed by this game. I ran with all my might. In order to defeat the final boss, the evil god Nefit, you have to be strong at maximum efficiency. That's why, somehow, this leeway felt awkward. The life that has passed suddenly rises quietly, shaking like smoke from a bonfire, like a haze. It was a life that I tried to die so as not to regret it. I ended up being possessed by this game, but I didn't want to be disappointed. It's because I have felt clearly throughout my life as a high school student that if I get frustrated, then everything will be over. It's hard. Magic training, physical training, study, every day. 24 hours a day feels like it's not enough. I'm rolling myself over and over again, but once you get used to it, it's okay. You're still good at digesting your routine. As I'm spending my time quietly, all kinds of thoughts surround my head. Still, at this time, it was fortunate that one of the guys I loved in Magic Knight of Marchen was by my side. Is it supposed to be psychologically comforting? You must have drank all the tea by now. I turned to the lover, thinking about giving me another cup of tea. For some reason, Kaya is bowing her head. Her face was as red as a blush. Smoke seemed to flow from above his head, like a hot spring mark. Could it be that you caught a cold because of the cold in the cave earlier? Even then, he seemed embarrassed to tell me that he was cold. I opened the status window to understand whether she was having a hard time because her physical condition was not getting better. Kaya Astriane. Psychology. I am extremely nervous to think well with you. Mine? I was a fool to worry. Understand it. Kaya grew up like a soldier under the sword castle Gerald since childhood, and has lived a life of building walls with men. The situation in which she has to sleep in the same place with an outsider would have a huge psychological impact on her. Besides, if I'm ugly, I wouldn't know. Isaac's face in the mirror is pretty even. She even admires me. The conditions were too appropriate for the strange air current to flow. I glanced at Kaya again. She seemed still nervous. You must be worried that I will touch you. In a good sense? In a bad sense? Or both? However, I can't sleep outside. And I only have one tent? Even if you make an igloo with ice magic. It's useless when you start to fall asleep because the magic is cancelled because the magic power cannot be controlled. The sound of a bonfire. The sound of a gentle flowing stream. If you leave the paste on your mouth while listening to nature's ASMR like this, the strange airflow will get worse. At that moment, I was slowly falling asleep. Perhaps, under the present circumstances, the best way to reassure her is to go to the corner of the tent and sleep first. Sleepy. Now. Yes. Neat. Private Kaya Astriane. I remember the time when I joined the military and was just assigned to the military. I was like that when I was in private. I got up from the simple chair with the blanket over my shoulders, ignoring Kaya, who was staring at me. I went inside the tent first. There was plenty of space for the two of them. However, I went to the corner and lay down as much as possible so that Kaya could sleep comfortably. 5. What is this comfortable feeling? Good dog. It doesn't feel like camping when you come to play. It's really camping. Excuse me. A little time passes. Kaya cautiously entered. It looks like there is tension in every move. She had a blanket over her shoulders wrapped tightly around her body. I deliberately didn't answer. I just squinted a little. Then closed my eyes again and pretended to be asleep. Kaya went to the corner seat opposite me and lay down. There was the sound of the blankets and blankets rubbing against each other. Soon, it became quiet. Can this guy sleep well? I slowly opened my eyes and glanced at Kaya. Gosh. Rumble. For some reason, Kaya's body was shaking violently like a vibrating bell. She pulled the blanket up to her lips, staring intently at the empty tent ceiling. It even clung to the corner opposite me, making the middle seat look too flat. Kaya Astrian. Psychology. My heart is about to explode at the thought of going to bed with you. Don't worry. I won't touch you. Well, I'll sleep on it. I closed my eyes again. The whole body was drowsy. It looked like he was tired. After finishing all the lessons for the day, I rode a carriage, came to the Tantic underground cave, and even killed Garcia. Isaac. Kaya suddenly calls me. It was said that the Academy detected the mana of the demons in the underground cave. Did you know by any chance that I followed Isaac-sama? Or even when I was around... This one is for that lil chicken owl. Of course I didn't know. Considering what Kaya had just said, it didn't seem like this was the first time they had followed me. First of all, for whatever reason, it wasn't good to create a situation where Kaya was chasing after me. Because if she finds out about my daily routine, which is always tight, there is a high risk that my bottom line will be exposed. Then you never know what kind of aftershock will come. An unpredictable variable is a frightening factor from the standpoint of considering it as much as possible. Holding on to the spirit that seemed to fall asleep at any moment. I answered in a subdued voice, "Don't ever do that again. It's annoying." I see. Kaya's answer trembled as if an earthquake had occurred. This should be enough. As I let go of the spirit I was holding on to, I fell into a dream. Had it been about 3 hours? I woke up from a dream I was sleeping during the military training in the cold season. It was also a nap here. Raised the upper body. It was not too cold in the morning to be covered with only one blanket. I don't feel much cold in the chill created by my magic, in the cold caused by the external environment. He was no different than an ordinary person. It's cold. He grunted softly and turned to Kaya. I saw him lying with his back on me, covered with a blanket. After I covered her with the blanket I was covering, he pulled out an extra piece of clothing from his magic pocket. I'm going to sleep with this covered. It was unavoidable. It's more comfortable for me to make this guy, who followed me with a young heart, feel less cold than I am cold. The scabbard of the disaster that was next to the spare clothes reached his hand. I took the item out too. I am happy every time I see you. When I was young, I remember getting the god card from King Yu, the giant god of the obelisk, and rejoicing, looking at it all day. I felt the same way as back then. As I gently touched the scabbard of the disaster, a smile flowed out. Pretties. I wish you well in the future. I put the scabbard of disaster back into the magic pouch. You should go back to sleep. Bye. He put the extra clothes he had taken out and laid it down on his body. It's cold too. I folded my arms and crouched down. It was a posture that did not lose body temperature as much as possible. Fortunately, sleep came easily. One meteorological. In my dream, I woke up to the sound of an alarm I never wanted to hear again. It was only for a brief moment. But it felt like shit. But, unexpectedly, I felt like I slept well. Is it because you slept for a long time? It was a daily routine for fatigue to always depend like a passive skill, as I was spared time to sleep while rolling over the fortress classes, training, and study courses. It's awkward. This refreshing as I raised my upper body while yawning for a long time. The blanket that was covering my body slid down. There was no celebrity next to him. When I turned my eyes to the side, I couldn't see Kaya. It looked like he had covered me with a blanket and left. I opened the tent door. The cool morning breeze swept away the faint drowsiness that remained, and immediately the sound of a bonfire was heard. He poked his head out the tent door. A canyon brightened by the morning sun. I could see the back of Kaya sitting on a small chair in front of the bonfire. She is wearing the coat I gave her yesterday. A blanket was draped over his shoulders. In front of her were charred firewood, which was supposed to have been brought in the morning. I put on my shoes and left the tent. Okay. For some reason, Kaya is surprised. She turned her head towards me with an unnatural speed. Why are you so surprised? Isaac, did you wake up? Dark circles were cast under Kaya's awkward smile. His skin was white and curly, so it was a particularly striking color. I must have slept properly. Ikea Astrine. Psychology. Because you really don't know how to touch your fingertips. You feel relieved and at the same time skeptical of your attractiveness as a woman. Manai. What do you mean? After walking for about 30 minutes, we came to a carriage stop. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing. And this belonged to Huehue. Me and Kaya got into a carriage. Perhaps because it was a situation where male and female students appeared from nowhere. The coach looked at us with questionable eyes. The carriage departed for the academy. After a while, Kaya nodded her head and began to fall asleep. Then leaned her head against the window of the carriage and began to fall asleep. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. My coat she was wearing slid down, revealing her dwarf shoulders. I lifted my coat and put it over her shoulders. The carriage swayed, her head shook, and then she landed on my shoulder. It was a completely shattered look. Come to think of it, I don't know what this would have been like without Kaya. Originally, it was not allowed in Magic Knight of Marchen to go first to kill Gargia, who was accumulating power. You can't even enter the Tantak Underground Cave until Act 2, Chapter 4 is over. I completely broke the formula and explored areas of the game that I was not aware of. Therefore, a perfect comparison was impossible. But thanks to Kaya, I was able to successfully penetrate Gargia's golden ingot. It was easy to pick up and store Jeffrem. It was easy to obtain firewood and avoid hard physical labor. Thank you. But it helped a lot. I'll repay you someday. I leaned my head against the window opposite and looked out the window. The morning sun cast on the green leafy trees. The morning mist that had prevailed in the forest was fading away. The sky was scattering a pure blue light. About 4 hours later, the carriage arrived at the academy. A view of familiar buildings. I even felt like I had returned home. Kaya was still asleep. He looked very tired. Kaya, it's all over. I tried to wake him up by shaking Kaya's shoulder. As soon as I spoke, she opened her eyes and stood her upper body upright with moderation. Weather. It was an instinctive move. They pretend to be finite and live their lives, but the reality is that their entire body is full of military spirit. Did you arrive? Yes, it has arrived. Kaya got off the carriage first and turned her head away from me and covered her mouth. It looked like he was yawning secretly. I followed him down and handed the pay to the coachman. He bowed lightly and drove off the carriage. You look very tired. Bye. I wish I could send it sooner, but there was something important to say. I don't know if it would matter if you didn't tell me, but I definitely wanted to nail it. Kaya. Yes, Isaac. Kaya looked at me with such restraint that her movements were cut off. It was also kind of embarrassing. Anyway, it would be better to keep silent as much as possible about killing Gargia the Hermit. If the student council president Alice Carroll catches my tail, it will end my life. Fortunately, she wouldn't even know that there was Gargia the Hermit, let alone items like the Scabbard of Disaster. Alice is nothing more than a black screen trying to help the evil god Nephid manifest. This is because the evil god Nephid is not on her side. Take care of what happened yesterday. If anyone else finds out, I'd be in trouble, so please don't tell anyone. Yes. Kaya's voice creeps in like an ant's cry. Wasn't there a little bit of aegyo? His face turned red again. Kaya Astrian, psychology. We have a secret between you and the two of us, so we're both shy and proud. What else are you misunderstanding? It's a demon. I was thinking of a demon. Of course, I'll keep it a secret. Isaac, you must have a deep meaning. And again, Kaya sighed and looked at me with a serious face. The reason why demons appear in the academy, why Isaac Nim finds and destroys demons, there's something I don't know about this academy. Right? You don't even have to answer. Isaac is a great man, so there must be good reason why it's hard to say. The air gets heavier, this conversation flow. It might be a good opportunity to have Kaya on my side. All causes are the evil god Nephid, the very final boss. If there was a colleague who could share information about him, and that person was Kaya, it would certainly be very psychologically reassuring, but he didn't want to put such shackles on Kaya. The advent of a powerful being capable of destroying the world lightly. Saying that it cannot be stopped is different from a death sentence. There was a high possibility that it would put a heavy psychological burden on Kaya. Anyway, I will continue to kill the demons until I reach the evil god Nepid, and I have a plan already. And if nothing goes wrong, Kaya will probably continue to follow me. There wasn't much of a difference. Then it would be better for this kid not to answer. Thank you, Isaac. Let's just go in. Kaya understood my silence as an answer, and bowed her head slightly in greeting. She takes off her school uniform cardigan and returns it. He turned his back on me and moved his feet. As I looked at her back as she left, I fell into deep thought. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Marchen Academy has an entire island. So, on this island, a small economy is formed under the leadership of the academy, and money is circulated. It means that there are all kinds of places that you can only see in a city here. However, due to academy rules, academy students are not allowed to sell items brought from outside. Students can only sell what is legally obtained on the academy's premises. When all students enter the academy, they sign the Marx Treaty. It is an absolute pact governed by the providence created by Archwizard Marx, and it is effective only on the site of the Marchen Academy. Failure to do so will result in a compulsory expulsion. One of the conditions of the suspension is the sale of imported goods. Creating added value in the form of consignment sales or subcontracting is also prohibited. The resolute will of the Marchen Academy is felt. This is our site, so we will monopolize it. Jeffrem is a mana stone obtained on the academy grounds and is non-casting. I was relieved that there was nothing against the rules. As an aside, trading is not only dealt with as a Marxist treaty. For example, it is strictly forbidden to bring in consumable items that involve magic from outside. Such is the case with spells and potions. After breaking up with Kaya, I went to the appraisal center. Behind a glass case lined with all sorts of trinkets. An elderly, short grandfather greeted me. Hey, what a bachelor logo. There are several appraisal centers in Magic Knight of Marchen. Among them, Harrison's place is set so that you can't go to it at the beginning, instead of appraising it at the most generous price. However, since I found out that the second half of the content, the secret shop, was already available, I was sure that I could enter here as well. In the first place, I am not in a position to be constrained by the game story. How much will Jeffrey be sold here? It is expected. For reference, there is an unwritten rule that no one asks for anything in the appraisal center, unless it is illegal. Besides, Harrison is a veteran and a very thoughtful guy, so I wouldn't mind if I brought a bunch of Jeffrems. Just a lucky young man? I guess, after bowing politely, I pulled out 2 magic pouches. Although the magic bag has the effect of reducing weight, it does not make it 0. Yes, the magic bag containing Jeffrem was quite heavy, but now my body is in a state of being trained by the PT of hell. Carrying a magic pouch like this wasn't easy, but it wasn't hard enough to die. He opened the magic pouch and took out the pale yellow mana stone, Jeffrem, and placed it on the glass case. Harrison's eyes turned from me to Jeffrem. I'm here to get an appraisal. Oh, this is... Harrison grabbed one of Jeff's and began to look through the magnifying glass. Where can I see you? Harrison starts looking around Jeffrem. The movement is slow, but considering the age, we have to wait. I also remember Ian Fairytale's frustration in Machin's Night because his movements were so slow. For some reason, the movement was very slow, but it was worth the wait. That's right. No. For some reason it was seriously slow like a sloth, but more tolerable. Take it easy. 10 minutes have passed before my patience explodes. When are you gonna tell me? 3,000 gels. Yes, 3,000 gels for one of these should be enough. Take it easy. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. My frustrated heart melted away like snow. I brought a total of 56 Jeffrems. Try to guess quickly. This is IE. Well, 68,000 gel. At that moment, my thoughts stopped. This one is for that little chicken owl. Only one thought filled my head. Tonight's dinner is beef. Girl, where have you been all night? The top dormitory of the Marchand Academy, Charles Hall. When Kaya saw the maid, Mary, who had been waiting for her anxiously all night, she answered with a serious face. I have been protecting the peace of the academy. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue, meaning unknown. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Mary was perplexed. Kaya reassured Mary through a conversation and said she wanted to rest by herself, then went into the room. A luxurious and spacious room that cannot even be compared to the small tent that I slept in yesterday, but her consciousness still remained within the small tent. Demon, I recalled what happened yesterday. Presumably, Isaac knew in advance that demons would appear at the Marchand Academy and entered the school. They are probably killing demons to keep the academy's peace. And if you keep his identity hidden, you can't interfere with his progress. I don't know the deep meaning of Isaac, but Kaya was convinced that following what he said was the way to protect people. Isaac. The time I had spent with Isaac yesterday came to my mind vividly. The overwhelming appearance when he froze the entire cave, the gentle appearance when he was wearing a coat, and the cold state when he poured magic on the demons next to him. All those memories filled Kaya's head. If her head is the sea, then those memories are just like the seawater that fills the sea. It was great. He was also a person who did not help but admire. But apart from that memory, it felt a little different than usual. It was at dawn when he secretly covered his blanket over him. Kaya, who had been pretending to sleep with a shrewd mind, felt a sense of embarrassment and warmth in her chest at the same time. Above all, a pretty thing. Hot. Just thinking about those words made my head heat up. I never imagined that Isaac would be pretty. Since yesterday, my heart has been constantly noisy. A regular and intense sound seemed to be constantly beating in my ears. At first, it was because of the tension. But after Isaac covered him with a blanket and said, "It's pretty," I started to feel a sense of ecstasy. Kaya looked at her reflection in the mirror on the dressing table. Red cheeks was not the problem. I had been sleeping all night in the carriage, so my hair was sticking out of my ponytail, and the makeup that Mary had put on me every morning was pretty much gone. I usually don't pay much attention to fashion, but today's disheveled appearance somehow upset her. I tried to trim my hair, even if it was late, but it felt like a meaningless act. What are you doing? Somehow, a sense of skepticism came over, and Kaya sighed. I couldn't quite understand the emotions I was feeling and the meaning of the actions I was doing. It is not a one-dimensional way of thinking from the beginning to think that it is about appearance. That's what Isaac said. Did you just take good care of me? Vida? To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Maybe he said that because he had a unique mind to protect the peace of the academy. Usually, when older people see a peculiar child, don't they often say pretty in the sense of stature? That's what it feels like. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Maybe it will. For some reason, Kaya couldn't take her hands off her hair for a while. I couldn't take my eyes off the mirror. Situation. In case you have any questions, you can refer to ubumtl.com for references. I dedicate this to Silky Goat. Name: Isaac. LV. 50. Gender: male. Grade: 1. Title: freshman. Horsepower: 605 of 650. Magical recovery speed: C. Stamina: C. Strength: C. Intellect: Q. Spirit: B+. Potential details: combat ability. Elemental Class 1. Ice. Elemental Power C+. Elemental Efficiency C+. Elemental Synergy C+. Elemental Series 2 Lock. Owned skills. Active. Ice Generation C of 5 Black Ice. 2 Ice Curtain C+. 1 Cold Air Dissipation C+. 1 Basic Protection Magic D. 4 Frostfire D. 4 Ice Wall D. Passive. 7 Psychological Insight. Skill Tree. Details. Unique Attribute. Destroyer. The level has risen by 14 at once. In Magic Knight of Marchen, the speed at which the amount of magical power increases gradually increases by level 50. Right now I am around that time. If I only go up 1 level in the future, my magical power will start to rise significantly. It didn't take long to learn Freeze Explosion. I didn't know you could suck honey so much. Sunny afternoon. I was in the corner of the garden as usual. He was sitting on the lawn and looking down at the sword of disaster he held in his right hand. I didn't want to waste even a second, so I gently raised and maintained Frostfire in my left hand. If you engrave a magic circle on the scabbard of disaster and infuse it with magic, you can use that magic once at any time. Then you have to charge it again to use it. The magic that can be engraved is up to 5 stars. The magic power is the same as my current level. When the Destroyer attribute is activated, you will need to inject a little more energy to use it. I want to try it right away. I shouldn't have tried the Sword of Disaster now. This is because the moment a magic circle is engraved here, the scabbard is assimilated into the magic. Then you can't change it to a new magic circle. Engraving Freeze Explosion on the Blade of Disaster is the most efficient. In other words, I was going to use this item only after I learned Freeze Explosion. Still pending? I put the Sword of Disaster in my pocket. In case you have any questions, you can refer to uwimtel.com for references. I dedicate this to Silky Goat. Next, it's time to distribute the stats. After I got up, I entered the status window, potential, details, potential power, retained stats, 38, growth rate, training efficiency C, 26 of 100 E, magic training efficiency B+, 55 of 100 up, learning efficiency D, 12 of 100 up, elemental resistance, fire element resistance E, 0 of 100 up, water element resistance D, 6 of 100 up, ice element resistance C, 24 of 100 up, lightning element resistance C, 29 of 100 up, stone element resistance E, 2 of 100 up, wind element resistance D, 10 of 100 up, neutral property magic resistance D, 8 of 100 up, great tribal combat power, human combat power E, 4 of 100 up, erase combat power E, 1 of 100 up, Elios combat power E of 100 up, anti-demon combat power S, 100 of 100 max. He has a whopping 38 stats. Magic training efficiency? The maximum is not far away. In case you have any questions, you can refer to uwimtel.com for references. I dedicate this to Silky Goat, no matter how bad Isaac's real potential is. The maximum magic training efficiency of 100 is a genius level. It will grow very quickly. However, the higher the level, the steeper the time it takes to move to the next level. It is said that no matter how much magic training efficiency you get 100, it will take a long time to develop your skills if you exceed the B+ level. Otherwise, Magic Knight of Marchen Hell difficulty would have been very easy. In order to get Heald's Frost Scythe, ice elemental resistance must be at least 60, but that will be resolved gradually. Let's also take physical training efficiency. It goes without saying that the stronger the physical ability, the better the battle will be. If you don't have as much motor nerves as Ian, you may find yourself in a difficult situation in the future. Besides, if you think about your future work, good physical ability is essential. It will also help you with legendary weapons. And since I have more stats, it would be better to raise learning efficiency. The higher the learning efficiency, the higher the individual magic proficiency growth rate. Magic training efficiency is different from that specialized in enhancing elemental combat abilities such as elemental firepower, elemental efficiency, and elemental synergy. It's also helpful for studying. Decided. I used the 13 stats left in physical training efficiency, 16 stats to magic training training efficiency. 9 stats were invested in learning efficiency. Potential physical training efficiency has been improved from Class C to Class B. Potential magic training efficiency has been improved from B+ to A. Potential learning efficiency has increased from D class to C class. In case you have any questions, you can refer to uwimtel.com for references. I dedicate this to Silky Goat. No matter how greedy Isaac is, he won't kneel anywhere with this level of potential. From now on, it's training again. Training again. Whoa! After taking a deep breath, I created Frostfire in both hands. Ground. An unidentified monster that appeared during the class assignment evaluation? Luce Eltania, the first-year head of the magic faculty of the Marchen Academy. Tried repeatedly to find out the identity of the monster. I didn't get any income. There was no way to determine which elemental properties each student had. After the class placement evaluation, the tomb has completely disappeared. Just in case, I searched all over the Delphine Forest and looked for mana traces, but I couldn't find any traces of the grave. If I had known this would be the case, I would have concentrated on measuring the amount of horsepower. If that was the case, I would have known which elemental properties each student had. It was the first time I regretted the past when I didn't pay much attention to others. He was walking through the academy gardens in the sunlight with a troubled face. I heard the sound of ice magic being used somewhere. It resembled a flame, but she could discern the subtle sounds of ice crystals crashing to and fro. It was definitely ice magic. The elemental attribute that ground used was ice. Luce remembered the grave and headed to the corner of the garden where the sound was heard. I passed the tall flower beds and past the roadside trees, then an open lawn spread out. In the middle of it, I found a male student who was sweating profusely and training 4-star ice magic, Frostfire. Her silver hair with a slightly bluish energy was semi-curly, and her eyes were cold blood. Perhaps it was because he was concentrating on training. His eyes were staring coldly into the air. Cold flames burning in both hands. White frost and ice mana form a flame, and beautiful ice crystals float around it. Ha! A man who exhales heavily and emits Frostfire. Luce knew who he was because of his photo memory skills. He was able to recall him clearly as if he were taking out a photo. He was a man who was scared when he saw himself during the class assignment evaluation, and then rushed around. He appeared in the direction he was running from. That man, and the ice attribute, He doubted for a moment, but Luce shook his head immediately. Grewing is an overwhelming talent. There was no way he could have been training hard for 4-star magic while sweating profusely alone like that, even looking at the short range of Frostfire. His skill level seems low. Even if it is far away from Nyung, it is a long way away. The blue silver-haired man started pouring nosebleeds the same color as my eyes, as if in pain. He bent his upper body and let out a moan. It's because he abused his magic too much. Luce had never experienced it, but she knew that if a magician sometimes would overdo it, it would get to that point. I heard that when you reach that state, your body reacts violently, making it difficult to use magic. In case you have any questions, you can refer to uwntl.com for references. I dedicate this to Silky Goat. Nevertheless, he stole the nosebleed with his sleeve and again sparked cold flames in his hands. This one is for that lil chicken owl. Once more. This one is for that lil chicken owl. Once more. The man exhaled, Frostfire. Luce watched it silently. The reason was unknown. Created the brain. On the day she signed a contract with Gaul, a 10-year-old girl turned her gaze away from others, feeling all kinds of skepticism about the human race. But now, Luce could not turn her head away from the blue silver-haired man. Is it because of the grave? Could it be that the monster awakened curiosity for others? The man stopped the magic and caught his breath. He sat down on the floor, bowed his head, and repeated his breathing. Is it over? Not. Get up again and repeat, Frostfire. This one is for that lil chicken owl. One more time. One more time. If you find it difficult to use magic, you do your best to train yourself by doing exercises such as push-ups and squats. Why do I keep wanting to see it? Luce stared at the man without hesitation. The blue silver-haired man went to the corner of the garden every day to practice his magic. From the rooftop of Charles Hall, a dormitory for top-ranked students, Luce was watching it. It is because here he can see at first glance how he is training. A night where only the moonlight shines extraordinarily. Luce, with her arms crossed on the roof railing, her long rose-gold hair and one-piece pajamas were fluttering in the wind, she looked at the man with the eyes of a hawk. The man trained mainly on the basic ice magic, cold emission, and ice generation, and he was also hard at work, ice wall, and frost flame. And whenever he had time, he put his hands together and collected ice mana between them. Luce, who had basic knowledge of most elemental magic, could easily recognize the reason. Freeze explosion. That man must have been intent on learning the 5-star magic. You work hard. The self-talk that came out without me knowing was scattered in the night wind, without knowing what he was thinking. Luce simply watched the man silently. Lightning elemental magic. Luce averted his eyes from that elemental attribute. She has been pouring out lightning elemental mana at all times to suppress the 8-star falcon, Thunder Creed Gaul. Right now, even at this moment. Because of that, no matter how hard he tried, he could not use proper lightning magic. Therefore, she has been living only dependent on water magic. I looked down at my right hand. Chi-Chi. And electricity flowed over the palm of his hand. Lightning generation, lightning attribute. 1. Effort. 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 Effort is something. As if there was a gestalt collapse, the 2 letters effort began to circulate in Luce's head as they split into pieces. Luce clenched his electric hand in his fist and exhaled a low breath. My chest was pounding. The figure of a blue silver-haired man training the magic of dying even though he is in pain, because he seemed to be in stark contrast to himself, who was constantly trying to run away from the lightning magic the next day and the next day. The blue silver-haired man practiced magic in the corner of the garden. He spilled coffee and continued to use magic even when his body was exhausted. Is it because of improvement? It's not without it. But it seemed that something bigger was pushing him. It seemed that he had a secret he could never back down. The more you look, the more your thoughts cross. His hard work is constantly being watched. A week later, last night, it seemed that the blue silver-haired man could slowly use freeze explosion. Luce was sitting on a garden bench, watching the man from afar. He was still training his magic. He put both his fingers together and created a gap between his hands, collecting ice mana. Then, when a light blue magic circle appeared in front of the gathered hands, his eyes widened. Luz pushed her upper body forward without realizing it. The presence of a magic circle means that the conditions for using the magic have been met. Will it be? Nah. The man extended his right arm forward. In front of his right hand was a circle of condensed ice mana. The light blue magic circle also quietly followed the hand, and the man burst the ice mana that had been condensed. Ice explosion, ice attribute. 5. Freezing that explodes with power like an explosion. In the blink of an eye, an ice ingot stretched out like thorns was placed in front of him. It was an ice block that could have been 10 more long. 5. Luz let out an exclamation. He couldn't even understand why he was so excited with his fist clenched. Soon, surprise spread across the blue silver-haired man's face. That feeling soon turned to bliss. The man closed his eyes tightly, clenched his hands in fists, and trembled. Before long, he raised his head toward the sky and shouted out cheers like a beast. He was so happy that he even did shadow boxing in the air. Foo-foo, without realizing it. Luz covered her mouth with her slightly clenched fist and smiled. It is practice training time. As the site of the Marchand Academy is unnecessarily wide, there are occasional buildings that are too wide. Here, the Callus Pavilion was like that. The Callus Tube is often used for practical training purposes. I came to the training ground as a team with 3 classmates from the Faculty of Magic. Room with nothing. On one side of the wall was the door we entered through, and on the other side was a passage like a tunnel. In front of us was a communicator flapping its wings at an invisible speed like a fly or a hummingbird, a round speaker the size of a human fist. It was a magic tool owned by a bachelor with voice transmission magic and magic that transmits the scene he is watching as an image. Professor Fernando's characteristic cynical voice was emanating from the messenger. You are in a group, and the group is randomly selected. From now on, you guys are going to fight monster illusions when you reach the final destination by defeating the demons one by one. The performance evaluation is over. If it is judged that someone is fatally injured, the student is eliminated. The Callus Hall alone cannot accommodate all the first-year students of the Faculty of Magic. Therefore, the other groups not assigned to the Callus Hall will conduct practical training in different places. How well you understand the characteristics and weaknesses of the monsters you have learned so far, and how well you can apply elemental magic in battle are the main evaluation criteria for this practical training. As a side note, how much you collaborate also counts toward your attitude score. It would be better to be sincere. Start in 10 minutes. To be fully prepared. Magic Knight of Marchand, Act 2, Chapter 3. Practice training. In this part, the main character, Ian Fairytale, gets involved with Class ACL Carneta. She is one of the official heroines. Later, Ian will play a key role in obtaining the light attribute legendary weapon, the Spear Sword. Feeling bothered by everything, she has a mind to go through practical training too, so she doesn't even care if other students get hurt by her magic. Ian doesn't like his attitude, so he gets into an argument with CL, then the building collapses, and the Hermit Garja appears. And the Act 2, Chapter 4, Ant Corp's part begins. Ian and CL work together to fight the Disaster Ants, but in the end, CL decides to take charge of the Disaster Ant army alone and deal with it. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Meanwhile, Ian passes the ants and heads towards the center of the building. The main content of Act 2. Chapter 4 is to encounter and fight the Hermit Gargia who was there. This one is for that lil chicken owl. Of course, since I have already killed Garcia. Act 2, Chapter 4 is confirmed to be skipped. In other words, this practical training will end peacefully. Maybe it's a very unfortunate situation. As soon as Professor Fernando finished speaking, a beautiful girl spoke with a sighing voice as if she had been waiting. Light brown short hair that curves down like a wave to the shoulders. She wears a red rose hairpin on her head, and the shawl over her shoulders is very conspicuous, with a gold border and a red background. Rose embroidery is also engraved. The eyes looking at me were bright gold. Rose Red Rivera. I was a Class B student. Rose Red Rivera. ELV 52. Race. Human. Attribute. Fire. Risk. X. Psychology. I feel humiliated to you. The Vulgar E-Class is our team. That's the bottom of the bottom, aren't you? She looks down on me with a mocking face and a confident tone. It was now a familiar treat, just trying to ignore it. So she popped her head towards me. This one is for that little chicken owl. Ooh, nice smell. You seem to be using expensive perfumes. There is always a role for a creeping insect. I'll instruct you on the role that's right for you, so please don't get in the way. Why are you so fussy about having a fight like this? I don't understand. Really. The remaining 2 boys couldn't say anything because the atmosphere was frightening. Clearly, Rose had a knack for speeding people up. But her role in Magical Knight of Marchand is small. To be honest, he belongs to the extras who can't even play a supporting role. To the extent that I flirt with Ian for a while and then get robbed. You and I are acorns taller. You bastard. Then let's start the practical training now. Power entry. 10 minutes passed in a heavy atmosphere. Professor Fernando's voice echoed from the messenger. Let's go. This one is for that little chicken owl. Our group began to move towards the aisle. It was a dark tunnel, but I was able to reach the end of the tunnel after a while. 5 black wolf monsters. Harkrang. were wandering around in the not-so-wide arena. Since it was a demonic illusion created by using an illusion realization magic tool, noise was occurring little by little in the appearance. Of course, it was so insignificant that it was difficult to tell the difference without looking closely. The status window did not appear. It was like a fantasy. We stood at the end of the tunnel and watched Heilong. This is because the fight begins the moment you step out of this tunnel. The Hukrang group has a habit of fighting in an open space. So, Alan and Ethan, please lock up the Heilongs with rock magic and ice magic. I will finish it all at once with fire magic. Rose naturally behaves like a leader. Among them, he seemed to think it was natural for him to become a leader because he was the highest class. There was no disagreement in the selection of the leader. The problem is that I am not involved in the operation. Well, it's about Hukrang, so it's easy to get rid of. So there's no need for D-class magical E-class. In reality, it's not even an E-class anymore. This one is for that little chicken owl. Our group went out of the tunnel, and the wolf monsters stopped and immediately started to check us. Black wolves roaring with their teeth exposed. 2 boys used magic against them. Deed. Rock wall rock attribute. 4. Ice wall ice attribute. Furfur. Crude rock and ice walls protrude from the ground, trapping the wolves. Rose raised flames with both hands and threw them at the monsters. Fireball fire attribute. 3. Whoops. A fireball, in the form of a blazing red ball, attacked the wolf monsters blocked by the rock and ice wall. It was a fairly high skill, fireball. The wolf monsters were burned and scattered on the floor, and then their shape disappeared. Heirang illusion is lightly repelled. Okay, let's go like this. We followed Rose's instructions and moved to the next passage. This one is for that little chicken owl. One after another, demons came out, and Rose ate them all. I also want to get good grades. Oh, this is the last time. It's easy. Finally, the last step. Rose and the male students were sarcastic. The boys seemed to be in a good mood because Rose made them active. Seeing that he didn't give me any instructions even after reaching the last stage, Rose didn't seem to have any intention of making me active. After passing through the passage, a large space with a marble floor appeared. In the middle of it, the last stage boss stood guard. It was the illusion of a giant monster that looked like a bull but was humanoid. Taro. He is tall enough to be 4 member tall. He was holding a large spear in his right hand. In case you have any questions, you can refer to uwmtl.com for references. I dedicate this to Silky Goat. Now you really have to work. It wasn't the time to look into Rose's eye. So I put Frostfire on my right hand, and Rose looked at me cynically. What are you doing now? Let's get some points. Collaboration is also an evaluation factor. Wouldn't it be nice to do well together? I answered as sadly as possible with a capitalist smile. Rose furrowed her brows in disgust as if seeing even a bug. It's ugly. What? For a moment, I doubted my ears. I don't even know the subject of an E-class. Don't install messily. The best person here is me. Please wait until I give you orders. Did you understand? Is it too much for Mr. Sun? Mr. Allen? Mr. Ethan? Let's go. Rose and 2 boys go out of the tunnel. After a brief moment of absurdity, he was captivated and soon followed them. At that time, whoops. Open. Fire generation fire attribute. Sean. Suddenly a fire erupted around me. It surrounded me in a circle so that there was no room to escape. Did I tell you not to disturb me? Wow, that year. It's varied. What are my treats? This one is for that little chicken owl. Only then did he recognize our group. Taro, a humanoid monster that looked like a bull. Rose. Alan and Ethan were poised for battle. Mr. Allen. Mr. Ethan. Formation? Huh. Rose swallowed a gasp as she tried to give the instructions. Whoops. Wow. Oh. Beep. It was a sharp movement. Toro jumped at Alan and Ethan at once and swung his spear, and the 2 boys' bracelets sounded a loud horn. The red light that started to shine on the bracelet. It was Dropout. Alan Navel. Ethan Purcell. Leaving out. And a cold sweat ran down Rose's cheek. If I had moved one more step, I would have been eliminated like the 2 boys. Seeing it from a distance, I was surprised for a moment, but the rose I saw in front of my nose was terrifying. The door dedicated to dropouts opened with a rattling sound. Everyone must stop moving until they are all out. The Taro Phantom also stood still in a stance wielding a spear. The losers left with anger toward the dropout gate. Now! The moment they step out and the door closes firmly, the Toro will start moving again. All you... Rose turned to me. His voice faltered as his heart rushed. Tuesday, I'll give you a chance to play an active part. You wanted to fight, right? Be the bait. In the meantime, I will defeat that monster with fire magic. Rose puts her hand on her chest and speaks. It was a voice that was trembling with fear, yet coercive like a young lady. It reminded me of the conversation I saw with the NPC Rose Red Rivera while playing Magic Knight of Marchand. She is obsessed with being best of the best. It was a mindset that the Red Rivera family had been harshly educating and instilling in her. However, it was difficult to beat the talented students of the Marchand Academy by effort alone. The fact that she belongs to Class B rather than Class A, which is the best, must have made her heartbroken. Even she ranks at the bottom of the B class. I'll just have to be in a hurry. You must be thinking that you have to show your best performance every moment. Of course. In this practical training, it was the intention of sacrificing myself to create a gap in Toro and then attacking. If you want to become the best at the Marching Academy, you must not drop out of this place. And if you do that, it will look like you perform the best. By the way, isn't it the order to turn off the fire first? Apparently, his heart was so urgent that he was not able to properly distinguish between them. Answer. As the dropouts left the door, Rosé had a vein in his neck and shouted out loud, "Do you have any answer? You know how to do it well." Woo. Roaring Toro resumed practical training. Rosé's face turned dark as Toro tried to swing his spear once more. Rosé quickly reached out to the floor and poured fire elemental mana. A red magic circle is embodied on the ground. A pillar of flame rose from beneath the Toro. Hurricane Rumble. Pillar of fire attribute. 4. Taro immediately jumped back and avoided Rose's attack. It was an agile movement that did not fit into a large body, and excellent motor skills. People who use magic well don't always do well in battle. Rosé had no talent for fighting. Seeing Toro, who doesn't obey his magic right away, his body trembles. Hearing the crying voice, it seemed that he was probably frustrated with the present progressive tense. The reason why she didn't make it to the top of the rankings during the class placement evaluation is very clear here. After avoiding the pillar of fire, Toro started running towards Rose again. This is the time. The situation in which Rosé is pulling aggro properly. Now is the right time for me to be active. Ice Generation Ice Attribute. 1. At the same time, Rose's magical control was disturbed and the flame surrounding me lost its power, so I made ice and covered the flames. Then he started running towards Rosé. Taro is running towards her like me from the other side, no matter how much fire magic she uses. The Toro can easily dodge and close the distance. Was it a sense of loss and despair? She just sat down on the floor. It looked like he was about to give his head to the running Toro. Have you already given up? I'm sad. Well, it didn't really matter. Still a long way from Rosé. Even the front is hidden by her back, so the angle is not right to use an attacking plane. Team kill is impossible. But it's too bad not to take advantage of this useful circumstance that she has been decoying. Well, there was a good way. I pulled out a dagger from my arm. It was a dagger filled with a scabbard of disaster. Goes, bah, fully demonstrating the muscular strength built up by the PT of Hell. He threw the dagger violently towards Taro as the scabbard of the disaster. Flirty. The dagger swung round and crossed the air without hesitation. He passed by Rose and came to Taro, who was running towards him. It felt as if the sword of the flying disaster and the mana circuit of the body were connected. The moment Taro reached Rosé and swung his spear, the feeling was strengthened. Then, as if pulling the trigger, the magic circle engraved on the scabbard of disaster was activated with a light blue light. The ice flooded explosively. Ice Explosion Ice Attribute. 5. Spurt. Ice crystals and cold air rushed in a riot, and the ice that burst from the black scabbard ate Taro. A spiky ice block that took over the middle of the battlefield. Soon, the shape of Taro in the ice mass disappeared without a trace. At the same time, Rosé's bracelet starts to ring loudly. Rosé Red Rivera is eliminated. The dispatcher announced his departure in a calm voice. Just before my scabbard of disaster activated its magic, Toro's spear struck Rose. Well, it didn't really matter, because I had no intention of saving Rosé from the beginning. Who wants to save someone who cuts themselves off? Rosé with her eyes closed and her head bowed. She trembled and barely opened her eyes. At the same time, I picked up the scabbard of the disaster that had fallen in front of the ice mass and put it in my arms. Whoa! What's going on? Rosé is confused. I didn't want to see her, who was easily frustrated during the battle, so I let out a sigh. What are you doing? With his back to the large ice ingots, while a hazy chill was flowing around him. After throwing out such a monotonous word, Rosé swallowed a gasp and opened her eyes wide as if in disbelief. I turned off the freeze. Then, the large ice mass cracked and split into blue powder and scattered in the air. After that, I turned my back and started moving on to the next passageway with my final destination. Rosé didn't think to get up for a while. Her next destination will be the door for the dropout that has just opened. Professor Fernando was standing at the final destination. He looked at me with cold blue eyes as usual. Then, his assistant said, "Ah." He walked away and collected a bracelet for performance evaluation from me. It looked like he had turned into a zombie because he was so exhausted from his overwork. Professor Fernando, who handled such an assistant, was like a necromancer. Group F. Practical training is over, results will be announced, and feedback will be delivered in a week. Good work. Can I pass that on to my group members? That's because it's all gone. It's okay. Anyway, I'll send them all at once before class starts tomorrow. After that, Professor Fernando said, you can go back right away. Alan and Ethan, who were eliminated first, said that they had already returned to the dormitory. How the performance evaluation was conducted and what specific evaluations were made are kept strictly confidential. So, there is no need to worry about letting the student council president, Alice Carroll, find out about something as suspicious as the Sword of Disaster. This one is for that lil chicken owl. Only actuality is revealed publicly. A week later, the results will be posted in the central hall of the orphan hall. Can I expect some grades this time? Although he only played once because of bitch Rosé, he still defeated the final boss. Wouldn't it be a little bit hopeful? This one is for that lil chicken owl. Of course, now that the gel is plentiful, and the disaster detection performance has been tested, there is no need to really dwell on the results of this performance evaluation. However, if you get good grades, you will feel good. I left the Callus Hall. The bright sunlight was dazzling, so I covered my eyes with a hand awning for a moment. The body was surprisingly light. It was the feeling I felt when I went home early after finishing my midterm exam in high school. But it wasn't time to play. From now on, you should start training right away. In case you have any questions, you can refer to umtl.com for references. I dedicate this to Silky Goat. Not long after I started walking outside the Callus Hall, at first someone stopped me saying, "Wait a minute." Even though he was standing still, he had a sweet voice like a young lady. "How did you do it?" It was Rosé who asked me all the time. She was staring at me with her arms crossed under the shade of the building. What? I knew what he meant, but I answered it deliberately and skillfully. Quick. Rosé came up to me with a small step while drawing a vein on her forehead. How did you, in E-class, defeat Taro? Although it was an illusion, how do you know that strong thing? Besides, what the hell did you do? There is no way that you, who are the lowest among the E-class of the D-class and the lowest, can already use 5-star magic. A voice full of weeping. The way he tried to deny it was pathetic. It must be a tendency to restore self-esteem by lowering others. However, she shattered her pride in front of the person she looked down on the most. He must have cried when he lightly jumped over a wall he could not have overcome. So, she tries to hide her weakness by denying me. Otherwise, it will collapse. I often see people like this in Silumdong. Surely these kids didn't pass the exam. Why didn't you save me when you yielded 100 times and had the means to defeat the enemy? Are you kidding me? In this case, there is a very good lesson. What's the secret to being happy? Not arguing with an idiot? Whatever. K. When he opened his axe's eyes and lightly threw a word, Rosé's face turned red from anger to the end of his head. Was it because I was so angry and frustrated that I was speechless? Well, Rosé must know how pathetic he was. Rosé grinds her teeth and rolls her feet. I felt like I had nothing more to say, so I just started moving my feet again. You stay below, I'll head up. Academy Faculty of Magic professor must have deep knowledge of all magical theories. Fernando Frost. He became a professor at the Faculty of Magic at the Marchant Academy at the young age of 25 with only his theoretical skills. Even at the Marchant Academy, where the continent's best talents are gathered, he is considered the object of envy. He was equipped with excellent intelligence, outstanding appearance, and the ability to teach a class that makes it stick in the ear as if calmly. As such, Fernando's near-perfect appearance stemmed from thorough self-management and obsession. The exterior is clean. When sitting in a chair, keep your back straight and maintain an upright posture. You shouldn't be in disarray where no one is looking. As an elite professor of the elite academy, every action should be overflowing with dignity. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Hiuhui. Midnight. The rain from the sky was beating against the window. Amidst the sound of rain breaking the silence, Fernando was sitting in the office of the Orphan Hall, the Faculty of Magic, examining the results of the practical training. All kinds of documents arranged in an orderly manner in the air. These were things that Fernando had hung in the air with telekinetic magic? Smart. When he heard a knock on the door, Fernando raised his head. Marconia, come in. To let you know that I've been through a lot. Then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Hiuhui. Marco, a male assistant with brown hair, entered the office. The face with a soul engulfed in it was not that of a human being. He went to where Fernando was sitting and handed over the papers. Fernando accepted the papers Marco gave him with a zombie sound. It was a document summarizing each student's practical training result scores and evaluation reviews. After reviewing it to make sure that there are no problems, I had to put the approval on the upper level. Fernando nodded after reading quickly and making sure that there were no immediately noticeable problems. Next is this. When Fernando pointed to the pile of papers piled up next to him, Marco let out a cry that was close to a scream. However, there was no other option for the trainee. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huihui. Marco picked up a pile of papers piled up to cover his upper body with both hands, and then tumbled out of the office. Today he will stay up all night. Fernando handed it over while quickly reading the paperwork with his telekinesis magic. He had supervised Callus Quan in today's hands-on training. Like the examiners, the progress of each group's performance evaluation was monitored with a crystal ball through the messenger. In this practical training, his role is to guide performance evaluation, to ensure that no problems occurred during the evaluation. If there is a problem, fix it. And the students who were dropped out were to be expelled from the field. Currently, after checking the video of the practice training conducted at each location, the students are being evaluated. It's hard to say that this first year of the Faculty of Magic is a generation of Jade, but like every year, there are talented people who are gemstones. Chief, Luz Altania? The first year head of the Faculty of Magic, Luz Altania. The maximum horsepower is truly overwhelming. Both the magic control and elemental firepower are impeccable. During the practical training, I used water magic to lightly defeat monster illusions. However, due to lack of sociability, the score of collaboration with the members was poor. Even when Joe One spoke kindly to him, he was consistent with a cynical attitude. You cannot survive alone on the battlefield. Luz Altania's weakness would be its dogmatic attitude that avoids cooperation. And the second seat? Kaya Astriane, deputy first-year student at the Faculty of Magic. Kaya Astriane. after Luz Eltania. She is the second student with the highest maximum magical power. Her skills are also impeccable, but it can be seen that she is a gifted and ill-fated talent hidden by Luz Eltania. Ciel Carnedas needs to reflect. Ciel Carnedas, a top-ranking student in the Faculty of Magic, showed an annoyed attitude while hurting his teammates. In the end, I even got into an argument with Ian Fairytale, who was in the same team. Even with excellent magical abilities, the attitude that caused internal division was difficult to appreciate in terms of cooperation. Mateo Jordana is pretty good. This one is for that lil chicken owl, one of the top students in the Faculty of Magic. Mateo Jordana, contrary to rumors, he had a solid side. It's weak compared to Luz Eltania and Kaya Estrella. During practical training, he showed that he was aiming for the weak points of the monsters while using effective tactics. In addition, he has the charisma to make his crew follow him. He is a guy with leadership qualities. Tristan Humphrey, he has magical talent, but there are many problems. Likewise, Tristan Humphrey, one of the top freshmen in the Faculty of Magic. The power of elemental magic was excellent, but there were too many things to improve. First of all, it was a big problem to give them a dog to analyze the weaknesses of the monsters and just fire powerful magic in a flash. The magic power was so strong that the monster illusions fell. But in the evaluation item, did you fight with magic efficiency in mind? It deserved the worst score. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Moreover, thanks to the prestige of the family, he succumbed to his students to follow him. Co-op scores are the worst. In the midst of evaluating the students, Fernando stopped working in the practice training group F material. This child. If I had to pick the student who stood out the most today, it was definitely a boy named Isaac from the D class. Silver hair and blood red eyes with a hint of bluish energy. At the time of measuring the amount of horsepower, he was a student who had an E grade and was clearly etched in his memory. This student used the 5-star magic freeze explosion today. The skill level seemed low, but it was certain. It looked like he was using a magic tool. Was there a magic tool that could engrave a 5-star magic circle? The world of magic tools was infinite, so Fernando could not easily grasp it. However, common sense. The existence of magic tools that can contain 5-star magic makes me feel uncomfortable. Theoretically, there was no problem. If the number of mana circuits contained in the magic tool is extremely high, and the durability is also very good. However, to withstand 5-star magic, it must be at an extreme level. In other words, the problem with the structure of magic tools can be overcome somehow. The thing that bothered me the most was the user of that magic tool. It is difficult to put in magic tools from 3-star magic or higher. This is because the magic circuit itself is much more advanced than 1 or 2-star magic, and the amount of mana to be stored is different. In other words, even if 3-star or higher magic is contained in a magic tool, in order to activate the complex magic, the magic tool user must be at a level that can use the magic. Otherwise, the trigger cannot be triggered. Exceptions are the realm of the impossible, so there is no point in discussing them. Perhaps the professors who acted as judges are now searching through books to find out the identity of the magic tools Isaac used. It would be difficult to ask questions directly, as contact with students regarding the content of the exam is prohibited by the Marxist Treaty. What I was curious about was Fernando as well, but he was no exception to the prohibition. The horsepower measurement was only 2 months ago. What is the probability that a student with an E level of magical power can learn 5-star magic in just 2 months? Is not there. But it's extremely terribly low. I used to be a genius, but I didn't know that fact. Would it be possible if he realized his genius only after entering the academy? It's not a novel or a play. Could there be such a dramatic story? Fernando patted his chin, pondering, and then gently shook his head. There may be such students. Wasn't this student's performance evaluation score steadily rising in the first place? Recently, there is a record of repaying all of the bank loans, giving up the profit over the term, and repaying them all at once, up to the maturity interest. He must have been working hard. Then it could be the case when he realized his magical talent. This is the prestigious Marchin Academy. No matter how great a student protruded, it was no wonder. If possible, it would be better to give a positive evaluation this time. Professor Fernando wrote an additional personal assessment of Isaac's feedback. He is a student whose growth is particularly noticeable. There is a tendency to rely on magic tools as an alternative to the lack of mana, but considering that it is used in the right place, it deserves a positive evaluation for its practical ability. However, as a freshman, it seems necessary to limit the use of magic tools as much as possible and focus on cultivating the ability to effectively apply pure personal abilities. Students who prove their potential are delicious to watch. In addition to Isaac, Ian Fairytale, which was priced at E-class magical power, is also showing great growth. It's fun watching the students you teach grow. That was Fernando's pleasure as an academy professor. The morning sun seeps through the curtains. The Estrian family's exclusive mate, Mary, sword-like weather. Get out of bed and clean the duvet neatly. In case you have any questions, you can refer to umtl.com for references. I dedicate this to Silky Goat. Next, a light meal with a sandwich and hot coffee. Wash. Change into maid clothes. Comb your long purple hair finely with a comb. The whole process was done like a machine. Her place was neat, and everything had to be at an angle. She looked in the full-length mirror and tied her hair up in a circle, checking the fit. No problem. The young maid, at the age of 20, cleaned herself up like that and left the maid's dormitory. In a room on the 4th floor of the Charles Hall, the top-class dormitory at the Marchand Academy, there was a young lady she served. The lady was always up on time. He's just sitting on the bed with his long, light green hair messed up and dozing off. Even while he was sleeping like that, he always opened the blanket neatly, influenced by her father and housekeeper. Gerald Estrain. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Mary ordered breakfast to the lady. He has a lot of appetite, so he eats happily. After the young lady washes and puts on her school uniform, she trims her outfit and puts her face in front of the dressing table to decorate her face. Then, tie the light green hair into 2 parts with a black cloth. Today, Miss Kaya Estrain is perfect. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Mary was satisfied. Mary, yes, lady. But why? Kaya looked back and forth at her reflection in the mirror and put on a sullen expression on her face. What? Ma, today's outfit must be perfect, right? Something a little bit today? I will correct it. It was Kaya who didn't care much about being stylish. It's just that, since it's the Duke of Estrain, it's just that she dresses beautifully with the maid's hand to protect her body. So Kaya had never once been dissatisfied with Mary's work. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Moreover, Kaya's cremated appearance, which was created by Mary's hand, has always been praised by many. Even in the background that Mary came to the Marchand Academy with Kaya and was selected as an exclusive maid, her dressing skills played a big part. In other words, the ability to decorate Kaya the most is one's pride. It was Mary's pride that no one could fall behind. So, Mary had no choice but to feel skeptical. Did he make any mistakes without realizing it? Not. I looked closely at the reflection of the young lady in the mirror again, but there were no problems with my work. The 2-pronged hairstyle was perfectly symmetrical. The makeup with a student-like innocent yet elegant concept was also successful. As usual, a pretty girl was there. So what's the problem? What the hell did you miss? What do you think about changing my style? Yes. A little more feminine? To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Missy. Kaya opened her eyes and spoke as if it was an expression she uttered after a lot of thought. What kind of wind blew her away? Mary instinctively guessed the reason. Lady, may I ask why you want to change your style? I also want to decorate. I'm ashamed. That Kaya lady is decorating herself. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Mary took a breath. I wanted to accept it as a simple desire to become prettier. But for that, Kaya's appearance was too questionable. You either looked blankly as if you were out of your mind, or lay in bed at bedtime and said, "Why did you do that?" Recently, the most suspicious memory flashed into Mary's mind. I went into the room to drop off the car to Miss Kaya, and I saw him staring out the window without saying a word. How come I knocked on the door and tried to get in? But there was no answer. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Mary sneaked aside and watched it. Lady Kaya was staring at the blue silver-haired man who was passing by with a blank expression on her cheeks and blushing. Then, when Mary said one more time that she had brought the car, Miss Kaya showed a look of surprise and bewildered. Mary, suddenly, this time has come. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Miss Kaya must have had a crush on the blue silver-haired man. Since when? To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Maybe last night out. It was the day Mary's life was shortened. I was so worried that I thought I was going to die. Fortunately, Kaya came back safely. And since he made serious comments such as, "I have been protecting the peace of the academy," it was from then on that Miss Kaya started to get untidy. At that time, what if you had stayed overnight with a stranger? That blue silver-haired man. It's a mistake. But I wouldn't have done anything unwholesome. If I did, I'd have a smudge on the girl's face. However, it was self-evident that the fact that she had spent the night with a man would have come as a huge stimulus to Kaya, who was not immune to the relationship of the opposite sex. Take care of men until you graduate from the academy. That is the command of the headmaster, Gerald Estrain. The figure of the headmaster who is angry, like fiery, is clearly depicted. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Mary touched her forehead. My head was already pounding. Is that so? Then what? Kaya blushed and twirled her ponytail with her fingers. It was an atmosphere that did not care about Mary's burning heart. Estrain's family code of conduct? What is the third one? Second daughter, Kaya Estrain. Respect your master. Respect your seniors. Show your demeanor to those you respect. Observe your appearance. The family code of conduct engraved in Kaya Estraini's head by Gerald Estrella. The third of them has an inner meaning. It was, let's develop ourselves to become a person who can stand shoulder to shoulder with people whom he respects in the future. However, Kaya realized that she had not been able to properly put that teaching into practice. I want to look good to Isaac. There was only one person Kaya longed for right now, Isaac. Did you show him a modest demeanor and a decent appearance? Not behavior first. I just looked immature. When I went to defeat the ant demons, whenever I think of the stupid figure I had shown to Isaac, I kicked the quilt, saying, "Why did you do that?" Besides, what about my appearance? Haven't you been wearing the same outfit every time? Even in front of the people he admires. Nothing has changed from his childhood self. Okay? To let you know that I've been through a lot. Then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. Morning. Kaya arrives at the Class A classroom to take a class. Her mind was full of Isaac. But the fact that she seldom met him these days was dismaying for her. Isaac had a halo just by looking at it, because she didn't have the courage to approach it. Even he told me not to stalk again. No, not to observe. If he had reached the level of an archmage, he would have easily noticed Kaya's approach. I didn't have time to observe. It's a normal thing to talk about. Ever since I came back from killing the demon ants, I felt nervous just standing in front of Isaac, and it felt psychologically difficult. Is it difficult to follow the Australian family code of conduct? Father. Anyway, I was thinking about changing the appearance and seeing it in Isaac's eyes. When Mary told me that the twin tails she usually wore were the best, I couldn't say anything. It was because Kaya had no talent for decorating, even in her own thoughts. I want to see you, Isaac. You just have to go. What's so hard about it? Even though you know the answer, it is difficult to put it into practice. Kaya shook her head and moaned. Decided. Give Kaya a present. When she went to slay the hermit Gargia, she was a huge help. If you don't give me anything in return, I won't feel comfortable. However, she is in a position where the gel remains and there is no luxury wall, so she will not like monetary compensation very much. Then, shall I give you a heroine-only item?
Ben?
In Magic Night of Marchen, you can prepare a gift that your opponent likes to increase the heroine's favorability. This is the chocolate I gave to Amy during the kidnapping of her childhood friend. Kaya is definitely one of the official heroines. I knew well what gifts she might like. The best among them is definitely Armana's wand. It is the only item that can be obtained from the secret shop among the heroine ending class weapons. A wand made of Armana, an 8-star giant beast that guarded the Great Forest. It is the only wand that resonates with plant attribute mana among the Magic Night of Marchen weapons. In addition, there is a mana stone made by condensing Armana's mana. In other words, with it, it will respond much faster to plant mana, elemental firepower, and elemental efficiency of existing elemental magic will also be noticeably improved. If it's Kaya, who has a great sense of improvement, she'll love it as soon as she receives it. It's also expensive?
Nah.
I bought Armana's wand from the secret shop and left. Armana's wand was very expensive. The price is a whopping 120 Zhaozen gels. So, at the beginning of Magic Night of Marchen, it felt like a picture cake. It's surprising that there is still money left. Although 120 dozen gels were used, there was still quite a lot of gel left. All materials such as textbooks and advanced writing instruments are provided by the bachelor's degree. As long as you don't overspend, you won't have to worry about living expenses. As he walked, he looked at Armana's wand. From the outside, it looked like a gray-brown tree had been cut and only a magic stone had been inserted. If someone with good mana sense catches it, it feels a little different. I'll give it to Kaya later when the time is right. I went to the dormitory, put Armana's wand in the box, came out, and headed to the corner of the garden as usual. In case you have any questions, you can refer to umtl.com for references. I dedicate this to Silky Goat. Now that I've finished all my classes for the day, it's time to focus on training. I reached the corner of the garden and took a seat. It's kind of like leveling up today.
Yeah.
Enthusiasm was soaring. After a light stretch, I created Frostfire in both hands. Level up. Elf has risen to 51.
Meh.
Acquire stat 2. Dun-dun. Situation. In case you have any questions, you can refer to uwimtila.com for references. I dedicate this to Silky Goat. Name. Isaac. LV. 51. Gender. Male. Grade. 1. Title. Freshman. Horsepower. Sig 80 of 1000. Magical recovery speed. C. Stamina C+. Strength C+. Intellect C. Spirit B+. Potential details. Combat ability. Elemental class 1. Ice. Elemental power C+. Elemental efficiency BR. Elemental synergy C+. Elemental series 2 locked. Owned skills. Active. Ice generation B of 5 black ice B. 2 ice curtain C+. 1 cold air dissipation. 1 basic protection magic D. 4 frostfire D+. 4 ice wall D+. 5 freeze explosion D. Passive. 7 psychological insight. Skill tree. Details. Unique attribute. Destroyer. In the evening, the night sky is slowly turning the light of the sunset. Garden corner. The grass was frozen around me. It was a trace of shooting magic to increase the proficiency of freeze explosion, frostfire, and ice wall. Freeze explosion is used once because 1 of 3 of the total magical power is blown away. But anyway, the increase in mastery is proportional to the amount of magic consumed. So even if you use it less often than other magic, your mastery will rise well. And in the middle of using magic, the level up system window appeared in front of me. Level increased by 1. Big man. Joy has come. Finally. The amount of horsepower explosion section, level 51. The amount of horsepower has risen to 1000 at once. What had been climbing steadily increased by half of the existing magic power. Freeze explosion consumes 200 mana each time it is used. So, if I use it 3 times, almost all of my magic is gone. But now it is possible to use it 4 or 5 times. In addition, the increase in the amount of horsepower rises so rapidly that the expression exponential as the level goes up becomes obsolete. I have to go to the Isaac Coin Rice Cake shop. While I was happily looking at the system window, a new system window suddenly appeared and was superimposed on it. You have acquired the passive skill, Demon Detect, by the effect of the unique attribute Destroyer. This one is for that lil chicken owl. Oh, right. If you have the unique characteristic Destroyer, you will be given a passive skill depending on your level. By the time I got Destroyer in the game, it was almost at a high level. So I was overlooking it because I was learning skills retrospectively. This one is for that lil chicken owl. Open the status window. Enter the skill tree, details, and touch the neutral box. There, the passive skill, Demon Detect, derived from the unique characteristic Destroyer was activated. Demon Detect 5. Detects nearby demons and identifies their identity. As the level goes up, the range that can detect demons increases. Type, passive skill, attribute, neutral, acquisition conditions. LV51O, possess the unique attribute, Destroyer O. I know where and how the demons will come out in the future. I'm not sure if these guys will do what I want. So, detect demons will be helpful from time to time. Let's invest the newly acquired Stat 2 in physical training efficiency. I have to train and study at the same time, and this routine requires a lot of stamina. Perhaps it was thanks to a lot of investment in physical training efficiency recently. I could feel my stamina increasing. Thanks to this, it felt like the overall training efficiency was increased. Besides, the magic training efficiency is class A, so there is plenty of room for it. So, it would be better to invest as much as possible in physical training efficiency and aim for becoming an Iron Man Isaac. Potential. Physical training efficiency has been improved from B class to B class. Great! B. In case you have any questions, you can refer to uwemtel.com for references. I dedicate this to Silky Goat. Now, until the end of the first semester of the first year, there are 3 important events left. Dalian. Summon summoning horses. And end of semester evaluations. In the first part of Act 3. Chapter 1 of Magic Knight of Marchant. The scene where Ian Fairytale applies for a match to Luce Altania and fights, revealing to the students that she is a light attribute is the key. There is no room for a bad ending crisis to intervene. There is nothing wrong with summoning a sergeant. In terms of increasing my power, it could be considered very good, but there was no crisis. There is a reason why this non-crisis part is repeated twice. This is because the last part of the first semester, the subjugation of the brain creep, is disgustingly difficult. So far, thanks to the Destroyer trait, I have overwhelmingly attacked demons, but at the end of the semester, I really need to be prepared to die. It's because Thundercreed Gaul is really strong. In Magical Knight of Marchant, the maximum level is 200. Thundercreed Gaul's level is 175. On the other hand, I am level 151 even when the Destroyer trait is activated. The higher the level, the greater the level 1 difference. In fact, it means that it is impossible to win by battling with the Brain Creed. We have no choice but to solve the situation by avoiding him as much as possible. The villain in the subjugation battle part of the Thunder Creed is Vera of Ministry. As long as you kill him before he loses to the Thunder Creed, the situation will be over. You have to train hard. So now is the time to focus on training. I slap my cheeks with both hands to get rid of my worries. Put your fingers together and make a gap between your hands. Ice mana flowed through the gap and began to condense. Light blue ice mana that begins to condense densely. It flows quietly like the eve of a storm, gathers in a circle in my hand, and shines softly like the moonlight. In order to use Freeze Explosion, with the body of an ordinary Isaac, I had to spend time in this position. It takes about 5 seconds to condense magic power as quickly as possible to use Freeze Explosion to increase the power. You need to spend more time in the preparation process. At my current level, condensing up to 15 seconds is the limit. After that, no more magical energy will be collected and will leak out. Then, I engrave the magic circle of Freeze Explosion in my head. When the magic circle of Freeze Explosion appears in the air, it means that the conditions for magic activation have been met. This time, it appeared in front of my hand. The light blue mana condensed in the hand is rotating slowly. It was in the form of a collection of shining cold air. Holding it in his right hand, he stretched his right arm forward and aimed at the air. The magic circle of Freeze Explosion followed the movement of my right hand. Now shoot this. What? Scream. In case you have any questions, you can refer to uwomtl.com for references. I dedicate this to Silky Goat. No, there was a mix of laughter. Concentration was disturbed by surprise, and the concentrated mana was released. I raised my head. In the sunset sky, a female student was falling at a frightening speed while holding a witch hat on her head, the hem of the school uniform fluttering wildly, and the shawl draped over the shoulder. Her long, pale purple hair was tied at the very end. I could see her smiling face under the hat. With Charala, a swarm of beautiful, colorful stars streamed from the girl's toes, slowing her fall sharply. She gently lands in front of me. At the same time, the starlight that was leaking out disappeared. Oh, that's fun. with a pretty and cute appearance. She gave a lively voice and smiled brightly. Oh my gosh. Mae. For a moment, I wondered if I was wrong. As long as I was possessed by Machin's magical knight, I would definitely have seen it someday. It was an opponent who did not know that he would suddenly fall from the sky like this. It was like meeting a celebrity at an unexpected timing. Yes. She turned her head toward me, apparently realizing my existence now. Eyes that seemed to contain the universe. Star-shaped pupils capture my image. Dorothy Hart Nova. Elf. 180. Race. Human. Attributes. Wind. Rock. Starlight. Risk. X. Psychology. This one is for that little chicken owl. Officially, everyone can use up to 2 types of elemental properties. The only exception is when you gain the power of a fairy. Just like that girl standing right in front of me. He made a contract with the Star Fairy, Stella, to use the magic of a unique attribute called Starlight. It is not derived from the main element attribute, but rather an attribute of its own domain. So there is nothing to discuss about compatibility. That's why she's called the Star Witch, one of the Academy's strongest powers. Hey, you're a first-year student. What were you doing here? She straightens the witch hat and asks with a smile. To let you know that I've been through a lot, then I've been going non-stop with this practice for nothing, and this belonged to Huehue. My favorite was Dorothy Hart Nova.